Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is the 1887 Cleveland Blues MLB baseball season. So after a 3-year break, Cleveland had Major League Baseball again. A new team was organized, and they were playing in a different league. Also, Major League Baseball, the American Association, which was founded in 1882, lasted till 1891. It was a rival to the National League. Also, top level play on par with the play in the National League, and so this was a rivalry, and because baseball was continuing to grow in popularity in the United States, and so this was some folks decided let's start a new league. Some folks thought the National League was puritanical, so the American Association had teams in river cities located on rivers, such as Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Louisville, and St. Louis. And back then, there was a belief, some people had a belief, that their river cities had lower morality in the people and lower social standards. So these people, I guess, folks in Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, and so forth, and Baltimore on the Atlantic Ocean thought they were superior. Oh, we're better. We live on the ocean. These people live in river cities are low class. So the tickets in the American Association games were cheaper, and they were appealing to. They were trying to get the market for people who had less money, and they allowed Sunday games, which was different from the National League, and also alcoholic beverages, and which were prohibited in National League games. So they were competing with the blue collar fans for their patronage. Now the Cleveland Blues are playing in a new ballpark called National League Park. It was located a few blocks northwest of Kennard Street Park. They played there from 1887 to 1890, and it was their baseball home for home games here in Cleveland. It was located on Payne Avenue and East 39th Street. Now, they also played one game at the Cedar Avenue driving range in Cleveland, a Sunday game, trying to bypass the prohibition on Sunday baseball. Now, in the 1887 season, the Cleveland Blues finished in 8th and last place in the American Association, a record of 39-92. So kind of a tough year. Winning percentage of .298. They were 54 games out of first place, behind the St. Louis Browns, who won the pennant in the American Association in 1887 with a record of 95-40. Really good. A winning percentage of .704. The second place team was the Cincinnati Red Stockings at 81-54. Third place, Baltimore Orioles, 77-58. Fourth place, the Louisville Colonels, 76-60. Fifth place, the Philadelphia Athletics, 64-69. Sixth place, the Brooklyn Grays, who are 60-74. Seventh place, the New York Metropolitans, 44-89. And eighth and last place, the Cleveland Blues at 39-92. Now, the Blues had been organized and created by a man named Frank Robeson, who was a businessman in Cleveland, a baseball executive. He organized this team that actually 2 years later was renamed the Cleveland Spiders. With his brother Stanley Robeson, he was co-owner of the St. Louis Perfectos / Cardinals from 1899 to 1911. Robeson was a streetcar businessman in Cleveland. He was a trolley car magnate. And so he thought to himself that having this Cleveland Blues baseball team was a way to put riders on his transit line. Now, a trolley car is something that kind of like a local train in cities for transportation in cities, and public transportation, getting from here to there. Robeson said this in 1886, quote, "I'm going to put Cleveland back in baseball. If I have to buy a team myself, sell the tickets, and haul it around in my streetcars." Robeson had two streetcar lines in Cleveland, one on Payne Avenue and the other on Superior Avenue. And National League Park was located on Payne Avenue and 39th Street. So this would, right on his streetcar line. The streetcars originally had been horse-drawn, and then eventually they became electrified. You had these, and they rode on tracks, kind of like train tracks. In 1900, Cleveland had the 7th highest population in America. The challenge, again, was actually, even though the American Association allowed Sunday baseball, in the state of Ohio, baseball was prohibited by law on Sundays at that time. And most men could not attend week games because, they were working from Monday through Saturday. They could only attend on Sunday games. And the games were played in the afternoon. They weren't played at night. No night baseball. So this was a challenge financially for the Cleveland Blues, because Sunday would really be their big day for income, because that's when most guys could attend games. The Blues in 1887 were virtually an expansion team. They had 2 uniforms. One was white, blue-gray, and with dark blue stockings and dark blue belts, blue hats, and white bands. They did have a Sunday game that was played at the Cleveland Driving Park. 2,500 fans came. There was a citizen complaint, and as a result, Cub Stricker, a player for the Blues, was arrested at the end of the game, and a fine was paid. So the Robeson decided not to have any more Sunday games in 1887. The team started at 3-18, very tough start. They never recovered. Near the end of the season, the Sporting News said, quote, "It is very likely that the Clevelands will be a very much improved team before this season of 1887 comes to a close." The Blues needed 1,400 fans to break even financially, and the average for the year was 900 fans a game. So Frank Robeson lost money that year. The manager for the Cleveland Blues in 1887 was Jimmy Williams. And he was from Catawba, Ohio. He died in Westbury, New York in 1918 at age 71. Williams managed the St. Louis Browns and the Cleveland Blues between 1884 and 1888. He managed teams a total of 282 games. His record was 110 and 169, a winning percentage of .394. He's buried in the Green Lawn Cemetery in Columbus, Ohio. Jimmy Williams. Now, in the lineup, Pop Snyder, almost all the guys were new. There were a few guys from the former Blues team. Pop Snyder was the catcher. He hit .255, 12 doubles, 3 triples, 0 home runs, 27 RBIs, and 5 stolen bases. Snyder was a catcher, umpire, manager from Washington, D.C. He died in Washington in 1924 at age 70. For his career, he hit .235, scored 433 runs, 384 RBIs. Snyder played for the Washington Blue Legs, Baltimore Canaries, Philadelphia White Stockings, Louisville Grays, Boston Red Caps, Cincinnati Reds, Cleveland Blues, Cleveland Spiders, Cleveland Infants, Washington Statesmen between 1873 and 1891. So he had quite a career, long career. As manager, he managed the Cincinnati Reds and the Washington Statesmen. In 1887, he was the National League leader in games. And in 1878, 1879, and 1882, he was the league leader in putouts by a catcher. In 1876, 77, and 79, he led the league in assists by a catcher. In 77, 79, and 89, he was the league leader in double plays by a catcher. So in 1882, he was with the Reds. He was the manager, and they won a title. He also umpired 390 games. So Pop Snyder was a fine defensive catcher, had a tremendous career. Jim Toy was our first baseman. Toy hit .222, 20 doubles, 5 triples, a home run, 56 RBIs, and 8 stolen bases. His full name was James Madison Toy, named after the fourth president, James Madison. Toy was a first baseman catcher from Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, home of Joe Namath. Excuse me. He died in Cresson, Pennsylvania in 1919 at age 60. For his career, Toy batted .211, 67 runs, 63 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Blues in 1887 and the Brooklyn Gladiators in 1890. He was a very versatile player, could play different positions, and had a good throwing arm. With Utica, he won a title in the International League in 1886 in the minors. His career ended. He had a foul tip to the groin and got poor medical care, led to his end of his playing career. In 1963, a baseball writer claimed that Toy's father was a Lakota Sioux Indian. And then this is before Louis Sockalexis, who's considered the first American Indian MLB player, although Toy did not acknowledge having Indian background. Okay, Jim Toy. Cub Stricker was our second baseman. Stricker had a fine year. Hit .264, 19 doubles, 4 triples, 2 home runs, 53 RBIs, and 86 stolen bases. So the stolen bases were becoming popular, and Stricker could run. He was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, had a hot temper. He died in Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania in 1937 at age 78. Career average of .239, 12 home runs, 411 RBIs for Cub Stricker. He played for the Philadelphia Athletics, Cleveland Blues, Cleveland Spiders, Cleveland Infants, Boston Reds, St. Louis Browns, Baltimore Orioles, and Washington Senators from 1882 to 1893. He was the manager of the St. Louis Browns in 1892. In 1887, he pitched 3 games for Cleveland and had a record of 0-2 with a 3.18 ERA. In 1887, he scored 122 runs. In 1892, he was as the St. Louis Browns manager for 23 games. He had a record of 6-17. After a home loss, Stricker jumped into the stands and punched a fan who had been heckling him. And this was the final season incident against the Washington Senators. The crowd was jeering the Senators relentlessly, and Stricker feigned to throw a ball into the crowd a couple times. He finally released the ball, which struck a fan in the face and broke that fan's nose. Stricker was arrested and apologized. Cub Stricker. Ed McKean was our shortstop. McKean hit .286, 16 doubles, 13 triples, 2 home runs, 54 RBIs, and 76 stolen bases. McKean was a shortstop from Grafton, Ohio. Died in Cleveland in 1919 at age 55. For his career, he batted .302, 66 home runs, 1,124 RBIs, 323 stolen bases. McKean played for the Cleveland Blues and Cleveland Spiders from 1887 to 1898 and the St. Louis Perfectos in 1899. He led the National League in at-bats in 1891 and 1895. He played in the minor leagues until 1908. For his career, he had 2,083 hits, 66 home runs in 13 seasons, and he was considered one of the great players of the time. Now, I'm reading a wonderful book called Ed McKean, Slugging Shortstop of the Cleveland Spiders by Rich Blevins, 2014, and Ed McKean is considered one of the great slugging shortstops of the 19th century, and he's forgotten. He is the original shortstop for a Cleveland championship team, the 1895 Cleveland Spiders, who were MLB champions, and that have been forgotten. After his career, he tended bar at the Shortstop Inn in Cleveland. McKean was was good Irish storyteller. As a shortstop, they called the shortstop position McKean's Garden. Cleveland Spider historian John Phillips said this about McKean, quote, "the Lou Boudreau of the 19th century." And according to the author of this book I mentioned, Ed McKean should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. From 1887 to 1898, he rarely missed a game. In 1892, he had an accident and shot off part of his finger, missed 28 games. He was a farmer, a Greco-Roman wrestler, a ghostwriter for sports columns, a barkeeper, a referee for professional wrestling, a semi-pro football player, and Cleveland alderman. He was a son of Irish immigrants who left his Ohio farm and became one of Cleveland's original sports heroes. He died too young of alcoholism. As a young man, he considered becoming a Catholic priest. His parents had fled the Irish potato famine in Ireland. By 1855, 2 million Irish had fled to England, Australia, Canada, and America because of starvation in Ireland. McKean loved coming home to Grafton, Ohio, and was very devoted to his mother. He's buried in the Calvary Cemetery in Cleveland. His was the first generation of American kids who grew up playing baseball. Oberlin was a baseball hotbed at the time, not too far from Grafton. McKean was physically strong from doing farm work. His pro debut in the minors in Youngstown was in 1884. Played for the Nashville, Tennessee Americans in 1885 in the minors, and again in the minors in 86 in Providence and Rochester. He was the best shortstop in the International League. A star was born. It's the minor leagues. He was a very aggressive fielder. In Rochester in 1884, they called him Smilin' Mac and Mac the Hustler. And it was written, quote, "McKean probably covers more ground than any other player in the nine. He runs in every corner of the field and looks at a foul tip in a disappointed way, as if he wanted to run behind the batter and catch it." McKean invented the slugging shortstop. Before this time, shortstops had been light hitters, but very good on defense. In 1887, McKean made his MLB debut with Cleveland, and he had hits in his first 19 games. He was paid $1,400, which was the AA minimum salary. In 1887, there was controversy because McKean had signed a contract with Rochester and Cleveland, so he signed two contracts. There was a resolution. Rochester released McKean for $300. In 1887, in spring training, it was described as short and sweet. 3 games for spring training. Cleveland was playing local teams, and for the away teams they played Mansfield, Akron, and Canton. There was a change in rules in 1887. Batters could no longer call for high or low pitches from the pitcher. In 1887, it was 5 balls for a walk and 4 strikes for a strikeout. The home opener was for the Blues in 1887 was May 4th. 4,000 fans came, and McKean was only 18 years old in 1887, so he had a tremendous career. Ed McKean. Phil Resius was our third baseman, hit .205, 6 doubles, 3 triples, 0 home runs, 29 RBIs, and 9 stolen bases. Resius was from Louisville, Kentucky. He died in Louisville in 1903 at age 40. Career average of .231, 117 runs, 99 RBIs. Resius played for the Louisville Eclipse, the Louisville Colonels, the Cleveland Blues, and Rochester Broncos between 1882 and 1890. He also pitched 1 game for the Blues in 1887, had no decisions, and an ERA of 7.71. Phil Resius. Now in the outfield, Pete Hoteling was back. He had played for the previous Blues team, and he had a fine year, hit .299, really good. 28 doubles, 13 triples, 3 home runs, 94 RBIs, and 43 stolen bases. So it was nice having Pete Hoteling back, and he did very well. Fred Mann was another outfielder. Mann hit .309, 15 doubles, 7 triples, 2 home runs, 41 RBIs, and 25 stolen bases. Mann was from Sutton, Vermont. He died in Springfield, Massachusetts in 1916 at age 58. He played for the Worcester Ruby Legs, the Philadelphia Athletics, Columbus Buckeyes, Pittsburgh Alleghenies, Cleveland Blues, and Philadelphia Athletics again between 1882 and 1892. His career average was .262, 12 home runs, 388. He scored 388 runs. He's interred in the Grove Oak Cemetery in Springfield, Massachusetts. Fred Mann. Myron Allen was another starting outfielder. Allen hit .276, 22 doubles, 10 triples, 4 home runs, 77 RBIs, and 26 stolen bases. Allen was from Kingston, New York. He died in Kingston in 1924 at age 69. His career average was .259, 157 hits, 14 triples. Allen played for the New York Gothams, the Boston Beaneaters, Cleveland Blues, Kansas City Cowboys, and from 1883 to 1888, they called him Zeke. And for the Blues in 1887, Allen also pitched 2 games, had a record of 1-0 and an ERA of 0.93. Myron Allen. Charlie Riepschlager, now we're getting into the bench players. Riepschlager hit .212, 8 doubles, 3 triples, 0 home runs, 17 RBIs, 7 stolen bases in 63 games. Riepschlager was a catcher from New York, New York. He died in Atlantic City in 1910 at age 54. Career average of .222, 0 home runs, 63 RBIs. Riepschlager played for the New York Metropolitans and Cleveland Blues between 1883 and 1887, so this was the end of his MLB career. Riepschlager is buried in the Lutheran All Faiths Cemetery in Queens, New York. Charlie Riepschlager. Another bench player was Scrappy Carroll, who hit .199, 5 doubles, a triple, 0 home runs, 19 RBIs, 19 stolen bases in 57 games. Carroll was an outfielder from Buffalo, New York. He died in Buffalo in 1942 at age 82. Career average of .171, 0 home runs, 20 RBIs. Carroll played for the St. Paul Whitecaps, the Buffalo Bisons, and Cleveland Blues between 1884 and 1887. So this was the end of his MLB career as well. He was 5'7" and considered to have a pugnacious disposition. In 1887, he may have been the first MLB player to wear sunglasses. It was written that Carroll, quote, caught the attention of the cranks at the ballpark one sunny afternoon by wearing a pair of colored spectacles. Scrappy Carroll. Charlie Sweeney was a bench player, hit .226, 4 doubles, 4 triples, 0 home runs, 19 RBIs, 11 stolen bases in 36 games. He also pitched 3 games, had a record of 0-3, ERA of 8.25, 3 starts, and 3 complete games. Charlie Sweeney was a pitcher and outfielder from San Francisco, California. He died in San Francisco in 1902 at age 38. Died young. Career record of 64 and 52 as a pitcher, 505 strikeouts, ERA of 2.87. Sweeney played for the Providence Grays, St. Louis Maroons, and Cleveland Blues between 1882 and 1887. So this was the end of his MLB career. For the 1884 Providence Grays, he had 19 strikeouts in a game, which was a record which was tied but not broken for 102 years, broken by Roger Clemens, who had 20 strikeouts in 1986. Later in the season, Sweeney pitched drunk and was released. And Old Hoss Radbourn pitched the rest of the Grays games, 159 games for an MLB record. In 1886, Sweeney gave up 7 home runs in one game, which is still an MLB record. In 1894, Sweeney killed a man in a saloon and was convicted of manslaughter. In 1898, he went to prison. In 1898, he was pardoned by California Governor James Budd. He died of tuberculosis 9 days short of his 39th birthday. God bless Charlie Sweeney. John McClone was another bench player. McClone hit .253, 2 doubles, a triple, 0 home runs, 10 RBIs, 15 stolen bases in 21 games. McClone was a third baseman from Brooklyn, New York. He died in Brooklyn in 1927 at age 62 or 63. Career average of .195, 38 runs, 33 RBIs. McClone played for the Washington Nationals and Cleveland Blues from 1886 to 1888. He was in the minors until 1894. John McClone. Jimmy Say hit .375, 5 doubles, 3 triples, 0 home runs, 12 RBIs in 16 games. Tremendous average. Jimmy Say was from Baltimore, Maryland. He died in Baltimore in 1894 at age 32. He was a third baseman shortstop. Career average of .263, 1 home run, 12 RBIs, 217 at-bats. Say played for the Louisville Eclipse, Philadelphia Athletics, Wilmington Quicksteps, Kansas City Cowboys, and Cleveland Blues between 1882 and 1887. His brother Lou Say was also an MLB player. Jimmy Say. John Munyon hit .241, 1 double, a triple, 0 home runs, 6 RBIs, 4 stolen bases in 16 games. Munyon was a catcher from Chester, Pennsylvania. He died in Endicott, New York in 1945 at age 84. Career average of .251, 4 home runs, 68 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Blues, Columbus Solons, St. Louis Browns between 1887 and 1891. So this was his rookie year. And he was in the minor leagues for 12 years from 1884 to 1895. John Munyon. Chief Zimmer was a new guy. He hit .231, 5 doubles, 0 home runs, 4 RBIs, and 1 stolen base in 14 games. Zimmer was a catcher-manager from Marietta, Ohio. He died in Cleveland Ohio. 1949, at age 88, career average of 269, 26 home runs, 625 RBIs. Zimmer had a tremendous career. Played for the Detroit Wolverines, New York Metropolitans, Cleveland Blues, Cleveland Spiders, Pittsburgh Pirates, Philadelphia Phillies from 1884 to 1903. He also managed the Philadelphia Phillies in 1903, and he was considered the finest defensive catcher of his day. He set MLB records with 188 assists in 1890 and 16 double plays in 1895. He caught runners stealing second 183 times in 1893. One of the first everyday catchers. He also was a wholesale retail cigar business. He also created was called Zimmer's baseball game, a mechanical baseball parlor game, which was popular in the 1890s, which Zimmer invented. As a young man, he was an apprentice for a cabinet maker's shop. In 1896, he got the nickname Chief, and he said, quote, "Since our team, the New York Metropolitans, were fleet of foot, we were called the Indians. As I was the head man of the Indians, somebody began to call me Chief. It stuck." Zimmer was not American Indian. In 1887, he was the first catcher to play in the squatting position directly behind home plate. Before, the catchers were further back, often standing. He received hand massages after the games to help keep his hands healthy. He was with Cleveland for 13 years, from 1887 to 1899. With Cy Young, Zimmer and Cy Young were the most famous battery of the 1890s, in other words, pitcher and catcher combination. After the 1892 season, the Sporting Life wrote this about Zimmer, that he was, quote, "temperate, faithful, conscientious player, a great local favorite. His throwing ability is a holy terror to would-be base stealers, and very few men steal second off him when anything but a slow pitcher is in the box." In 1893, the pitcher's mound was moved back 9 feet, which led to a dramatic increase in batting averages. However, Zimmer was very unhappy about this change. He said this, quote, "They are making the pitcher a mere automaton. By and by they will make him stand on a piece of ice and pitch. Say what you will, the pitcher is the central figure in the game. People pay their money to see baseball, and the more scientific it is, the better. When you put a pitcher out of sight and make a toy of him, you are working squarely against the interests of the game, in my opinion." Zimmer said, "When you put the pitcher out of sight and make a toy of him, you are working squarely against the interests of the game, in my opinion." Zimmer won a title in 1895 with the Cleveland Spiders, the Temple Cup Championship, best-of-7 series against Baltimore. And Zimmer had a 2-run home run in Game 7. So he was a hero in that title year. In 1896, the Sporting Life wrote this, quote, "If there is one player whose services Frank Robeson cannot afford to lose, it is Charlie Zimmer. In spring, summer, and fall, or any old time at all, Chief is in condition." In 1896, Zimmer and his wife were sleeping at home at 43 Steinway Street in Cleveland. 2 masked men with revolvers woke them. He was robbed of a $60 gold watch and $20 in cash. In Louisville, Zimmer mentored Rube Waddell, the future Hall of Famer. He was amongst the highest paid players of the time and invested wisely. He developed a grocery business, got into real estate, and had a restaurant. He made furniture. He never smoked or drank. In 1900, he was president of the first players' union, but because of lack of cooperation among the players, the union became very weak and ineffective. In 1904 and 05, he was an umpire in the National League. In 1906, he made a comeback with the Little Rock Travelers in the Southern Association at age 45. Zimmer was married, had 3 daughters. He made furniture as a hobby, and he lived in Cleveland the rest of his life. He's buried in Crown Hill Cemetery in Twinsburg, Ohio. Chief Zimmer had a tremendous career with Cleveland. Good guy. Joseph Ed Herr hit .273, 2 doubles, 0 home runs, 6 RBIs, 2 stolen bases in 11 games. Herr was an infielder from St. Louis, Missouri. He died in St. Louis in 1933 at age 68. Career average of .261, 3 home runs, 50 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Blues and St. Louis Browns between 1887 and 1890. Ed Herr. Frank Scheibach hit Ed Herr. Ed Flynn hit .185, 1 double, 4 RBIs, 3 stolen bases in 7 games. Ed Flynn was a third baseman from Chicago, Illinois. He died in Chicago in 1929 at age 65. He played for the Cleveland Blues in 1887, and that was the extent of his MLB career. Frank Scheibach hit 222, two hits, 9 at-bats, 3 games. He also pitched a record of 0-1 with an ERA of 12.00, 1 start, 1 complete game, 9 innings pitched, and 12 earned runs allowed. Scheibach was a shortstop from Detroit, Michigan, and died in Detroit in 1956 at age 91. Hit 235, 214 runs, 148 RBIs, played for the Cleveland Blues, Detroit Wolverines, Toledo Mommies, Pittsburgh Pirates, Washington Senators, and Cleveland Blues again in 1901, and the Detroit Tigers between 1887 and 1906. In the 1895 Detroit Free Press wrote, quote, Scheibach is not only a daring and good fielder, but he is fast on the lines and can do his share of hitting. In 1888, Scheibach had 81 stolen bases for the London, Ontario, Canada Tecumsehs. After his playing career, he got into the real estate business. Frank Scheibach. Hank Simon had a batting average of 100, 1 hit, 10 at-bats in 3 games. Simon was an outfielder from Hawkinsville, New York. He died in Albany, New York in 1925 at age 62. Simon had a batting average of 267, 2 home runs, 61 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Blues, Brooklyn Gladiators, and Syracuse Stars between 1887 and 1890. He was in the minor leagues for 20 years between 1885 and 1904. Hank Simon. Now getting into the pitching staff, Billy Crowell was, as a hitter, hit 141, 1 double, 6 RBIs, 5 stolen bases in 45 games. As a pitcher, his record was 14-31, an ERA of 4.88, 45 starts, 45 complete games, and 1 shutout. Crowell was from Cincinnati, Ohio, died in Fort Worth, Texas, 1935 at age 69. Career record of 19-45, 138 strikeouts, an ERA of 5.15. He played for the Cleveland Blues and Louisville Cardinals between 1887 and 1888. And in the minors in Altoona, he won 28 games in 1886. Billy Crowell. Mike Morrison was another pitcher, hit 191, 3 doubles, 2 triples, 12 RBIs, and 5 stolen bases. His record as a pitcher was 12-25 with a 4.92 ERA, 40 starts, and 35 complete games. Morrison was from Erie, Pennsylvania. He died in Erie in 1955 at age 88. His career record was 20-39, an ERA of 5.14, 254 strikeouts. Morrison played for the Cleveland Blues, Syracuse Stars, and Baltimore Orioles between 1887 and 1890. He had a career average of 213, 287 at-bats, and he's buried in the Trinity Cemetery in Erie, Pennsylvania. Mike Morrison. Bob Gilks was another pitcher. As a hitter, did very well. Hit 313, 2 doubles, 13 RBIs, 5 stolen bases. His pitching record was 7-5 with a 3.08 ERA, 13 starts, and 12 complete games, and 1 shutout. Gilks was from an outfielder pitcher from Cincinnati, Ohio. He died in Brunswick, Georgia in 1944 at age 80. Career average of 231 with 320 hits, 142 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Blues, Cleveland Spiders, and Baltimore Orioles between 1887 and 1893. Bob Gilks. Hugh One-Arm Daly was back, former player, played for the Blues previously, the other Blues team, the previous Blues team. Daly had an average of 0.69, 4 hits, 1 RBI. As a pitcher, Daly went 4-12 with a 3.67 ERA, 16 starts, and 16 complete games. Another pitcher was George Pacini, who hit 250, 9 hits, a double, 2 RBIs. As a pitcher, his record was 1-9 with a 7.12 ERA, 10 starts, and 10 complete games. Pacini was from Cincinnati, Ohio. He died in Cincinnati in 1943 at age 81. Career record of 23-34 with a 4.23 ERA, 183 strikeouts. He played for the Cincinnati Red Stockings and Cleveland Blues between 1885 and 1887. He was the opening day pitcher in 1887 versus Cincinnati, and we lost that game 16-6. And finally, John Kirby was another pitcher, hit 167, 3 hits, 1 triple, 18 at-bats, a record of 0-5 as a pitcher, 9.00 ERA, 5 starts, and 5 complete games. Kirby was from St. Louis, Missouri. He died in St. Louis in 1931 at age 66. Career record of 18-50, 4.09 ERA, 200 strikeouts. He played for the Kansas City Cowboys, St. Louis Maroons, Indianapolis Hoosiers, and Cleveland Blues and Kansas City Cowboys between 1884 and 1888. And after the regular season, the World Series was played in 1887. The Detroit Wolverines, who were the National League champions, defeated the St. Louis Browns, who were the American Association champions, 10-5. So that's the story of the 1887 Cleveland Blues. Tough year, but we had MLB baseball back in Cleveland, which was wonderful. And actually, ever since then, well, we've had professional baseball only 1 year in the minors, 1900, but we've actually had professional baseball in Cleveland ever since 1887. God bless the guys who entertained the fans in 1887 for the Cleveland Blues and everyone else associated with the team, including the fans, especially the Civil War veterans. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, fans of the Free Stamp statue, and the Fountain of Eternal Life. Tribe Browns and Cavs rule. Cleveland City of Champions. It's been 70 years since 1948. This is our year. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.